Lord, help us to not jump to conclusions based on our limited information or our biased or temporal emotions. And Father, in this season of impactful issues, help us put others before our sometimes selfish desires. They are needs in the lives of all those around us. In Galatians 5:13 it says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." Lord, we are aware that some people need to connect with another caring heart so that they can share their hurts and difficulties. So, Father, keep our antennas always turned on so that we can pick up on the needs of others and then help us to gently and lovingly reach out. Father, I also ask that you help us to stand firm in our faith. Help us to not rock back and forth, but to maintain or move forward. You showed me that when you choose to retreat, you give up ground. I pray, Father, that tonight you will bless this city meeting and everyone here and at home listening. We trust your hand that guides and provides for us, and we trust your heart that loves us. Keep everyone here focused, fair, and wise in their strategies, decisions, and comments. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Linda. So now, yeah, Kirsten, do you have something we can replace?
Thank you. Is it going? We're good, Mayor.
All right. Sorry for that little delay there. So now it is 6:04. We'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Borneman,
Present.
Monroe,
Present.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle, Mysick,
Here.
and Berberay.
Here.
And if you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Alderman Borneman.
Thank you. Tommy, you want to help me with this? Yeah. All right, take it away.
Okay, first is the approval of the agenda. We are going to remove item number 13 and move item number 13 to the move item number 15 to the 13th spot, and then also we are going to put the swearing in before the public comments. So, with those couple of adjustments, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Mayor, one
yes.
more time, who made the motion?
Busker, Ross.
Thank you.
Next is approval of the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting held on June 14th, 2021. If you approve of those minutes, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Berberay, seconded by Alderman Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. So we'll move on to our swearing in.
Madam Mayor, I present to you this evening firefighter Zachary Downs for his swearing in. President Gridley?
First of all, congratulations. It's always exciting to see somebody joining this outstanding team of individuals. One of the things that helps me sleep well at night is knowing that this group is out there, and if ever there's a moment of need, that they'll be there at a moment's notice. Just an outstanding group of individuals who you are now a part of that team. So congratulations. Thank you. Official Commission, City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commission. To all to whom these presents shall come, Zachary F. Downs, having been duly appointed to the position of firefighter EMTB in and for the City of Freeport in the County of Stevenson in the State of Illinois, for the term from the 12th day of July 2021 until his successor shall have been duly appointed and qualified, is hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all the duties of his said office, according to the law and the ordinance of said city, and all persons are required to respect him in the discharge of his said duties by order of the Board of Fire and Police Commission. Congratulations. Thank you.
I, Zachary Downs, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of firefighter according to the best of my ability. Super stoked to be here.
Thank you very much. Yep. We're going to do that. We usually.
Yeah,
Over here. Yep. Yep, right here.
Council, we have public comments next, and according to our ordinance, we allow 6 public comments, 3 for a subject and 3 against. However, we have possibly 5 that are wanting to speak against the proposal. Are you okay with allowing a couple of extra individuals? That's okay? All right. Then for public comments, just please be aware of the 3-minute rule, and we'll allow each one to be able to say what they'd like, okay? So we will start with Jeannie Olinger, if you would like to take the stand.
My name is Janine Olinger. I live at 1515 South Park Boulevard, immediately to the north of the property in question. The question before the City Council is whether the property at 1601 should be rezoned R5 or stay as it presently is R2, single-family residential. The neighborhood citizens want this property to remain R2, the developers R5. This 6+ acres of land now zoned R2 would not be acceptable for a condominium development for many, many reasons. The surrounding properties to the north, east, and west are all single-family lots of an acre or more. The density of this proposed development would be a total departure from the surrounding lots. Several very important reasons for this development to not go forward are very obvious. The detention pond at the south end would be a total eyesore for the neighbors or anyone driving by. Have you seen the detention pond between Jimmerifics and Meadows Drive in the back of the Shell station? It is, as I said, a total eyesore, and this will be like 3 or 4 times as wide. Where are the HOA residents going to put the snow after a snowstorm, such as we had in 1979? I've asked people, and they have no answer. Where are the cars going to park on Demeter while waiting to enter this project when there is no place off-road to park while waiting to enter Park Boulevard? Part of this is because of the detention pond. This will cause a total bottleneck for traffic trying to turn either left or right onto Park Boulevard. This would look like a total scar in the neighborhood because it's difference in density, style, and purpose. This permanent scar will last for generations through your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, and forevermore.
Thank you. Mr. Wiegans, you had signed up here, but did you want to say something here or wait until it's addressed with council? Okay.
My name's Todd Wiegans. I live at 1575 West Demeter, immediately south of the proposed development. By now, you're surely familiar with our project, so I'm going to be sparing you a big presentation tonight. We are seeking a map amendment from R2 to R5 to develop a condominium development on property that's been vacant since 2006. We believe in this project and the overall benefit to the community. We knew there would be some opposition. Change can be difficult. All we ask is that it be weighed proportionally against the benefits to the whole community, which include an estimated $6.4 million of new residential use, $3.5 million of real estate tax revenue over the next 20 years, off-site sewer on Demeter Drive serving an unsewered portion of the city, local construction-related professional jobs over the next 2 to 3 years, transition between the existing residential, recreation, commercial, multifamily uses, including the Freeport Club, which includes a bar, restaurant, and banquet facilities that would benefit significantly, as well as 230 acres of recreational property immediately west and south. From prior meetings, the greatest concern appears to be the issue of density. However, the project density is far less than that allowed within R5 zoning standards. There are several alternatives available that could result in much greater density. The Country Club condos located 300 feet northeast has 16 units on approximately 1 acre. With just 8 similar units on this property, there would be twice as many units than what we propose. The condominium development at Parkview, just 3 blocks northwest, has 35 units on 6 acres. Based on the zoning ordinance alone, the property could be developed with a minimum of 18 and up to 24 single-family residences under the current R2 zoning. In essence, we are seeking a map amendment to put in fewer structures than we would be permitted under the current zoning designation. The project fits your comprehensive plan developed and adopted by this council less than a year ago. We read the plan and believed in it, and we ask for your support in this project if you believe in it as well. I live directly across the street from this property, and I support this project. In my prior life, for nearly 30 years, my firm worked on similar developments in many communities and over several states, as well as hundreds of projects for the city of Freeport. I am asking for the opportunity to work with you one more time to better our community. I am also a concerned citizen, and I ask you, when was the last time the city of Freeport had a fully financed project of this magnitude? If you reject this project, I fear you are sending a clear message for years to come that development is not welcomed in Freeport. Once again, I will conclude there is no outside party coming to save Freeport. It must be done from within, and those willing to step out and take the risk should be supported. This project comes from within the community by locals willing to commit their own resources. I see all around the community all in Freeport. Well, I would submit this is what all in looks like. I would be happy to answer any questions you have of me when you get to item 9 on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wiegans. Alan Nowicki?
I'm Alan Nowicki from 1545 West Demeter Drive. The developer presents a very positive outcome for this project, a best case scenario. We've spent a lot of time before the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission. We've worked to understand this. I'm a neighbor as well. This project's not recommended by the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's not recommended by the Planning Commission. It's not recommended by the city staff, and it is opposed by residents of the neighborhood. It's not that we hate Freeport. Most of us have been here a long time. Many of these neighbors have been in these houses for longer than the property has been vacant, before Mr. Chesney bought it. We see significant problems with this development, with the density, with the road construction, the lack of sidewalks, the lack of visitor parking, the lack of amenities, the lack of open space. What he's going to do to develop this is to push a road right up against a neighbor's property line. Okay, that neighbor's been there since long before Mr. Chesney bought the property. Now they'll have a road 200 feet long on their property line. We ask you to consider the neighborhoods, consider the residents, consider how Park Boulevard will look. On the north side, virtually every other house is set back 100 feet from Park Boulevard. Here we will have townhomes set back only 30 feet from the lot line. We're not against development. We're not against development of that lot. We want something that fits in the neighborhood, that's likely to be completed, and will be as enjoyable for us as it will be for Mr. Wiegans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jen Nowicki.
Hello, my name is Jen Nowicki. I live at 1545 West Demeter Drive with the man that just spoke, and 2 houses down from Mr. Wiegans. I'm part of a neighborhood group that got together because we got a letter alerting us to a zoning change for a 32-unit condominium unit. We were pretty miffed that our neighbor didn't tell us about it, and he has offered to get together with us and talk about it, but we have had to spend a lot of time digging into the city process and what zoning means and what 32 condominium units would mean to our neighborhood. Our neighborhood, we don't feel, is just West Demeter Drive, but it also includes Park Boulevard, Crate Park, La Cresta Drive, and South Demeter Drive, if you know that area. And why we say that is because lots of people, there's a route that goes West Demeter Drive through the park, over the metal walking bridge. So we see lots of people walking dogs, kids, just lots of people, and we don't know how many. And that's part of it, is that we have lots of questions, and we ask you to have lots of questions too. So there's lots of claims made in the proposal, like traffic isn't going to increase very much. Here's the route that people are going to drive. They're not going to drive very much because they're older. Just things that to us sound ridiculous. We are not stormwater drainage experts. We are not traffic experts. We don't know, but we really have a lot of questions and worries what this will do to the neighborhood because we don't feel like it fits. We feel, I believe that the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove that how this will affect the area. And so we think that more information is needed before you vote yes to change the zoning in this area. So we hope that in the coming weeks, that unless a lot more information comes out on how the development will affect the area, we ask you to vote no for the zoning change for this denser property. And I ask you to really do your homework and ask lots of questions and look at the information that's provided before you make a decision. We realize Freeport could use the income and the tax revenue, but we also have to think of 10 or 20 years down the road. If this doesn't work, if 32 condo units, expensive condo units for a small subset of people, we don't see the evidence for that. And so unless someone else does, we ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Michelle Raster.
I'm Michelle Royster. I live at 1541 La Crusta Drive. My property abuts the proposed development at 1601 Park Boulevard directly to the north. As a neighbor, I have many concerns with this project, such as drainage, traffic, density of development, and the financial obligation for the city and its taxpayers, to name a few. We, the neighbors, are looking for answers to these questions and have yet to be able to get them. I don't believe in getting this will be taken care of a response, or any other similar type of a response should be acceptable. And I'm hoping you as council members will make sure these questions are properly researched and completely answered before moving this development forward in any part. This property is extremely dense and mostly paved. As such, it does not fit the harmony of the neighborhood. If you really take a look at the surrounding area, it's very park-like by the look and feel of how the properties have been maintained and the size of the lots. This development does not provide that and only seeks to develop the property as much as possible. The density issue shouldn't be taken lightly here. This is a very important issue to the neighbors. The drainage issues have to be addressed, and we should know all of the details ahead of time. The residents may be required to tie into the drainage system at a personal cost to them. This absolutely affects them. There is no such thing as this minimally affects or doesn't affect the neighbors, because that's absolutely false here. The city's financial obligation is not yet fully known either, or if funding will be requested to be paid for by the city even after the project has been approved. These answers are an absolute must. I provided testimony at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. This information, as well as the testimony by other neighbors and other documents, can also be accessed. I am asking for your no vote on this zoning issue. Every neighbor who has property that abuts the proposed development property, and many other neighbors along Demeter Drive, except for Mr. Wiegans, and on La Crusta Drive, oppose this project. That should be pretty telling about this project as a whole. It should really tell you a lot. That's it. Thank you.
And then last we have Laura Walter.
Thank you. It's Laura Welty. I kind of scribbled it there at the end because I was hurrying in. I live at 1531 West Demeter. You all got a letter from me. Well, the alderman did anyway. And first off, I'm really sorry that Steve's not here tonight. I want to publicly make an apology for something I said in that email, because I did not know that he had building experience. I knew that Todd had worked in the field, but was not sure that he'd ever done a development like this. And so I stand corrected. And I am sorry for that. I am better than that. Normally, I am better than that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that this project is being billed as an over 55 community. I have a lot of friends that live in over 55 communities. They're nothing like this one. They have private meeting rooms and clubhouses. They have walking paths. They have tennis courts. They have, I could go on and on and on. But they have a lot more than, by the way, there's a golf course with a restaurant and a bar across the street. And I really feel that the bare minimum you can offer people in an over 55 community are sidewalks. I wish we had sidewalks on West Demeter. We have bikers, we have walkers, and it's a narrow road, and it's not getting any wider because it's crumbling. If only one really good thing could come out of this project, if you do approve it, I'd love to get our street fixed, because it's awful. I mean, I fell on it and broke a rib last year. It is awful. So, I am concerned also about the cost if we are forced to tie in. I am also concerned about the street that comes absolutely parallel not parallel, but I don't know, up against the driveway that we just had put in because our driveway was crumbling too. So I can see the water rushing down. I mean, maybe we need cattle guards or something to keep it from coming across the street. Don't know. But I hope that the council will give this a lot of thought and consider not just the tax revenue that you think is going to come in to the city, but I hope you'll think about the people that are already living there, because we're not happy about this. And I had hoped to live in Freeport for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Welty. That concludes public comments, and I will turn the rest of the meeting over to Chairman Borneman.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're moving on to item number 8, which is the quarterly presentation from Greater Freeport Partnership presented by Mr. Mark Williams, Executive Director. Mr. Williams, you have the floor. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you for the first time in the year that I've been here without a mask. So hope it doesn't scare you away. But in any case, I'll be quick and brief. You should have received, if not just recently, our quarterly report via email. But a couple things. Discussions continue between the City of Freeport, Mesa City Manager, and Stevenson County to work together on a plan to extend water and sewer service to Millrace Crossing Industrial Park. This is important as we've seen an increase in activity and business inquiries. This past quarter, we've had 12 requests for leasable space, received 4 requests, information, RFIs from Intersect Illinois, the state's marketing arm. But we're unable to respond for shovel-ready sites because we don't have buildable sites, greenfield sites with sewer and water. You can't help but notice, multiple billboards around the city and the county from local regional manufacturers advertising jobs, openings, offering sign-on bonuses, and increased entry-level pay. Job openings and increasing across many essential industries, including retail, restaurants, food processing, distribution, manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, and education institutions. As for many of our members continue to search for qualified candidates, the partnership is reestablishing its job postings feature on its website and will begin promoting listings on social media and other channels. This is yet another benefit of the partnership in offering local businesses the support of their efforts to retain and grow staff. You can post your organization's job listings at thegreaterfreeport.com/jobs and log in to enter the portal. We held 5 ribbon cuttings this past quarter. It's Space Salon Studio and JS Photography Studio, Peck and Paddle, Comprehensive Orthotics and Prosthetics, and Hearing Life. We have several others scheduled for July and August, and more being discussed. Ribbon cuttings and businesses openings have generated at least 2 television reports, new business openings in Freeport. We completed the enterprise zone application processing for High Point Solar's $109 million 100 megawatt solar plant in the county. We are moving forward with the development of our entrepreneurship ecosystem, as we reported before. On behalf of the library, thank you for getting things set up with the Gale Business Suite, online business support software for entrepreneurs. This will be launched and marketed very soon. Housing. Housing is need. There's certainly an issue with housing right now in Freeport, and along with a lot of other places in the country. But housing, you may be getting a call from Redevelopment Resources, a consulting agency hired. We contracted with the Black Hawk Hills Regional Council to hire this company to do a single multifamily workforce housing study for communities in Stevenson County, including Freeport. Goal is to capture a thorough understanding of the housing market today, identify gaps in market, and provide recommendations of filling those gaps and solving the area's housing challenges. We believe this will assist employers to attract employees and initiate policy changes to local level for more supportive facilitating housing construction and redevelopment. Beautification, hopefully you've seen a pickup in this. Katie Gentz has successfully managed the largest countywide cleanup effort. We had over 20 different groups participate. 6 were businesses, 2 school groups. totaling 178 volunteers. Our next cleanup event is July 9th through 18th. Staff continues to provide maintenance with maintenance with various organizations and businesses to maintain our landscape beds and 8 of our gateway signs. We're also working very closely with the city staff, community development, public works, and within Fairgram as well, on communication and engagement for the plan of Chicago Street project. Because of granting cycles for the Park we had 4 separate grant applications that have been filed for the city on behalf of the Pocket Park. The goal of the awards would pay for most of the construction of the downtown Pocket Park. Notice of award was issued from the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois, Homestart Neighborhood Beautification Grant of $2,500 and $5,000 from the Association of Northwestern Illinois and Belvedere Board of Realtors. Our intent also is to moving forward the Main Street application, and this is we're still in the process of that. Illinois chapter of National Main Street is reforming and revisiting the community application process, so we're in communication with them. As we started the year, we started with the goal of improving our membership and business engagement through the development and use of a mobile app. This app is now nearly complete, and we look forward to launching it within the next couple of weeks. For marketing, the website vendor that we have, we work with, work to create improve our website if you got on it. We've also improved our SEO optimization, search engine optimization. So I know that there's more searches and we have social media presence outside our region because I've been notified by people outside our region now that they're seeing it. So the marketing is accruing. We had 18 member restaurants in our restaurant week. We had that for the first time. Photos and highlighted specials of 95 county restaurants were listed in Guide. The Guide was released digitally on April 15th and distributed in print April 19th. Promotions continued during the restaurant week of April 23rd through May 1st. We had the inaugural Pretzel Fest held April 24th. Pretzel City Wine Fest welcomed 275 guests on May 22nd. The first Music of Chicago event was held June 4th. And obviously we had the last one first week of July at the new Arts Plaza. We moved our offices. Wrap it up. If you haven't seen yet or you don't know, by now we moved into our new space at 110 West Main Street in Freeport. It was a big move for our organization. We look forward to welcoming you in this in an upcoming open house. Be part of our organization as we move forward. And thank you again for being a member of our partnership. Any questions?
Any questions, Council? You can probably guess what I'm going to ask you about. Any progress towards building a ride-sharing force in Freeport?
We actually have that reported in our quarterly report, so there is a little spot in there for that. Yeah, we do. We are in the process of, obviously, we've contacted and communicated with Lyft. We also communicated with Uber, going through an educational campaign, maybe a marketing campaign with local residents on the benefits of being a driver for Lyft and Uber. And then we're going to be surveying our local industry, our businesses, venues, and restaurants, particularly bars, based on your recommendation, Eric Alderman, that we would work with the restaurants and bars and see if there was a previous program that was held here years ago in co-op for transit. And also we'll be looking at that to see if there's any need and what they see as the demand going forward. So that's where we're at with that.
Great, thanks. Any questions from council? Mr. Burberry?
Mr. Williams, thank you for a great report. They're lengthy, a lot of details, a lot of activities going on. And typically the general public doesn't get to see those. I know you've got your app now and so on and so forth. But one of the things I think about, and people have talked to me about, is we look around the area and we see Rockford getting new businesses and Beloit getting new businesses and other communities. There's an influx of businesses. We have, yes, we have ribbon cuttings. Sorry to say, most of those are for nail salons and tattoo places, from what I see downtown. How can the chamber let us know, how can the partnership let us know what is going on to attract new opportunities, new business? I know it's confidential, the negotiations process, but nobody sees anything going on. So I don't know how you address that. Maybe this isn't the right forum, but I think it needs to be said.
That's a very good question, and I believe what you say. So there's a better way of doing and communicating how we're marketing coming out of COVID. As you mentioned, Rockford and some other areas, there's product that they had available and if you're specifically speaking to new projects that they may have around the airport or redevelopment projects in the downtown, many of those I worked on before I came here. So a lot of the tools were laid out in place, the infrastructure was in place for the site development. These are the things I laid out at the very beginning of my presentation. We need to have shovel-ready sites to attract investment. They need to have predictability, and private investors need to know where that's coming. The other is you need to have the available workforce and the talented workforce to have that going. Many of those things we're working with and we're bridging regionally. We're also trying to create and start entrepreneurs and create that environment for them. But to see where we're marketing, we'll eventually, as we get out of this with the product that we're developing, we'll be meeting what I was doing before with the brokers in the Chicagoland area. We'll be participating in any shows that we need to do and any advertising. But really, we're also starting, and we should be starting in this fall, with our business visitation program with existing employers, because majority of new businesses and expansions are coming from our existing employers. So as we go through that synchronous business visitation and database that we put data into, it identifies opportunities for attraction of businesses and expansion. That hasn't been done in a while. We're starting at this summer. So those are the things that lead up to doing this, but the decision makers are sometimes not the end user. So they may have site selection companies that come out and make the decisions for the end user. And so it's really information driven and not a lot of visibility in that. So as we move forward,
Thank you.
that's what we're trying to do.
Mr. Monroe?
Mr. Williams, you basically brought up shovel-ready a few times in the conversation. We've been asked to put forward quite a bit of money to provide water and sewer to an area outside the city limits. What shovel-ready sites do you see that potentially could be upgraded inside the city limits that we could put that money toward that would be a better use of our funds and actually generate a tax base for our local community as well as the county?
That's an area that we are working with. We'll be working with the Community Development Director's Office and Public Works to look at infrastructure needs and the sites that we have available that are not in a floodway, that are actually zoning compatible zoning. I'm not speaking of office spaces that you may have downtown and other areas, but there is limited space. You have commercial big box retail spaces that could be converted to warehousing. I get that, but there's not a lot of, some of the older spaces that we have are not really functional to today's needs of let's say, manufacturing. And so those are areas that we are looking at and bringing in and using rail access as well as other tools that we have to bring another product line in for us, diversify our portfolio. But we have plenty of office space around here. If we need to bring people back into the offices, that space is here. So we do look at that. We look at opportunities to grow outside the city as well, to extend water and sewer to maybe they can grow and expand their boundaries to provide access, utilizing the infrastructure that you already have in place, including bypass 20 and 26. So those are areas that we certainly are beginning those discussions.
Any other questions? Okay, well, appreciate your time, and as always, enjoyed your presentation. Mr. Williams, thank you, and we'll keep in touch. All right, next is on the agenda is item number 9. So this is the discussion regarding Park Partners condominium development at 1601 South Park Boulevard. Looks like Mr. Manager Bucus is going to start the presentation.
Actually, I'm going to turn the time over to our Community Development Director.
Great.
And between her and Mr. Wiggins, they'll give the presentation.
Okay. Director Hines?
So tonight we're talking about the 1601 South Park Boulevard proposed condominium development. We received information about this development earlier this year and have been working with Park Partners and Mr. Weekends on coming up with, or on basically going through all the zoning processes and planning processes to get it to where we are now. So what we have in front of you guys today is this is basically all of the material that we've received to date for the Park Preserve proposed condominium development. So we have the description, floor plans, and there's a series of concept plans and preliminary plats that we've gotten to date. We did just receive an updated preliminary plat yesterday. That is, it is not included with this packet, but the difference between the updated plat and the plats that you're seeing, that you did see and received with the agenda today, is that the Park Partners condominium development has changed and shifted from what would be a public roadway within the development to a private roadway. So that's changed some of our requirements that they need to follow. Originally, they were subject to our subdivision requirements, which are more strict. We require larger roadways, larger right-of-way, sidewalks, larger curves. The condominium development chapter, it lessens all of that. Right-of-way is not required, sidewalks aren't required. The roads are only required at 28 feet. So there's a lot less restriction, a lot more flexibility with the condominium chapter. So what we're talking about today is this. We did have the zoning board had the public hearing for the map amendment in June. We had a number of people present to object the project at that time, and the zoning board ultimately voted not to approve the map amendment. And then just last week, we had reviewed the map amendment application with the Planning Commission, now under the private roadway. And there was a motion to approve or to recommend approval of the project on the condition that the final plat is approved and that we get a landscape plan with the final plat. But the vote was actually 2-2, and then 2 people abstained. So we didn't get a very clear idea from the Planning Commission on what they wanted for that. But our staff recommendation was ultimately not to approve the map amendment application.
Okay, so before council is this item today, what are the council's options today? Could you?
This is really just discussion, a time for you to ask questions of staff or of the petitioner, of the public, to get you introduced and to the project, and to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Okay. Manager Bucus is, or anybody, I guess, could answer this, but if there isn't a motion to move this forward to council, what happens to the item today?
Well, basically, you have to act on the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals recommendations.
Okay.
So it's not a matter whether we move this forward or not. It has to move forward. The reason, as Director Hines mentioned, is the fact that we just want to give you an opportunity to discuss it informally, so that if you have any questions about it before we put it on the next council agenda, you can ask those questions.
Okay.
And if we need to do any research between now and next council meeting, we'd have some time to do that.
All right. Just based on the public comments before the meeting, I wanted to make sure that it was clear, like, what it is that we're doing today on this item. So that's why I asked those questions.
Right. We're not looking for any formal action tonight.
Thank you. I'll open the floor. Did anyone on council have questions? Mr. Busker?
Yes. Seeing all this information coming at us, I apologize. I didn't get a chance to read much of the information. I was on vacation last week with no internet access, but a $7 million project, I think it is definitely necessary for us as a council to do our homework. I'd hate to just put this on next month or next meeting for a vote on it without being able to do the homework and talk to everybody. You know, I think, I don't want to delay their project too much, but I would feel that coming back at the August cow for more questions and follow-up, if we don't get them between now and then, would be better used than just trying to rush this through within, you know, that meeting. We're gonna have one more meeting this month and then another meeting the 1st of August before, you know, and then we have to make a decision. So, you know, that's where I'm at with it now. I don't have enough information to make a decision the next 2 meetings. I'd like to get together and talk it over with the powers that be that are willing to invest the money into this. And maybe we can come out with some mutual understanding between all partners and that would benefit the neighborhood as well. So that's where I'm at with this. I don't want to rush anything. I want to make sure that we get, you know, $7 million project in Freeport. That's big. So I want to make sure that we do it right if we're going to do it.
Alderman Buster, you're aware that this is just only about the map amendment, right? I mean, the final plat is yet to come.
Correct.
Okay.
But, you know, step by step, you know, I want to make sure we're doing it right from the first time. So.
Is it according to, is it customary that we would allow Mr. Wiegans to be able to give a little bit more detail, or you just want to go to questions?
I will gladly, if Mr. Wiegans is willing and interested in presenting information today, I'd allow him to do that now, or he can wait. We can continue to ask questions. You have a preference on that, Mr. Wiegans?
Well, I would love to make a full presentation, but I've already committed to you that I would not. Out of fairness to those that are in opposition to the project, I opted for public comment, and that way we can answer any questions that you have of us or of them. So, you know, at this time, I guess I would opt not to do a formal presentation.
Okay.
We ask Mr. Wiegans a question.
Yeah, would you answer questions if we have them for you? Or are you?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to
Great.
answer any
So,
questions.
Mr. Burberry, you have a question?
Thank you. Todd, it seems that there's a tremendous opposition from the neighbors. I'd like to know if you or they have talked together as to what would be in their minds acceptable, what would be in your minds acceptable as a compromise. Has any of that, because I still have some skepticism as to that lot might sit empty there for another 10 years because the neighbors don't want any development on it whatsoever. So that somewhere in there, there's a compromise.
Yeah. Well, and I have promised one of my neighbors I wouldn't continue to do a count of the times that I've reached out, but suffice it to say I've reached out numerous times to the opposition group, and I believe, they have told me, that they've been directed by their council to not communicate with us because it would be non-binding. But we would love to meet with them and address any concerns they have. The concerns that we're aware of have come out of public testimony or public comment at the ZBA and at the Planning Commission. But some of them, frankly, they run contrary to each other. You know, for instance, we hear comments that they want us, that there's a tremendous stormwater runoff issue. I agree, but this development will address that and it will correct that. I hear they want sidewalks, but to put in sidewalks would require us to remove additional trees, and they have spoken about the removal of trees as a major issue. I believe their major concern is density. I mean, that's my belief, is that it's one of density, and that's why, you know, I wanted to point out in the public comment portion that even under R2, according to your ordinances, I've looked at it, and we could fit somewhere between 18 and 24 single-family residential properties on that parcel. These would be single-family homes with kids and bikes and cats and dogs. That's more structures than what we're proposing under the R5. So to conclude, I believe we could resolve any number of issues that they might have if we had that opportunity.
I had a question for you, unless Mr. Burberry had more. Based on what you said there about, made me think, there's going to be a homeowners association bylaws, correct? It's going to be a homeowners association, right? Are those drafted?
They're about 90% drafted. We're doing some final revisions of them. I could submit to staff, what we have. I'd be happy to do that. But they'll certainly be coming with the final plating information as required under the condominium ordinances.
Okay. So again, today is not about approving the plat, but about approving the amendment to allow for the development. So I'm going to try to keep it focused, not on specifics about the project, because the project, you don't have a final project, right, at this point?
We don't have the final project plans done, but we have completed the preliminary plat phase.
Okay. One of the questions, and I know there was some stuff was submitted, but was there an official traffic study completed?
There's not an official traffic study completed that I am aware of for our side or for the opposition, but that I'm aware of. But I've been a professional engineer since 1986, and traffic engineering is one of the things that I've done for over 30 years of my career.
Alderman Borneman,
Yeah.
would you mind if I ask a few questions?
Oh, go ahead.
Obviously, listening to tonight, density is a huge issue, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around a few things that were said. So if you could clarify, you said that there were 16 units on 1 acre. You said there were 35 units on 6 acres. And then I also read that this project density is less than 50% of the allowed density limits. So are you saying that you could actually put 64 units on that 6 acres? I'm just a little confused on what that means.
No, it's a great question. And I beg forgiveness, but when in 3 minutes, you really got to talk fast. The country club condos are located 300 feet northwest of this project. Those condos have 16 units in 2 buildings on approximately 1 acre of land. Very early in this project, we actually considered seeking R6 zoning and putting in those types of buildings. We could easily fit in 8 of those buildings. 8 of those buildings would give 64 units. What we're proposing is 16 duplexes or 32 units, which is half of what that project density would be. Secondly, it's because staff referenced the condominiums they're associated with Parkview. I don't know if that's what they're called, but they're just north of Pearl City Road and associated with the Parkview complex. But there is a development there that city staff referenced as the closest zoning designation to what we were seeking. And that development has 35 units on 6 acres of land. We're proposing 32 units on 6 acres, 6.2 acres of land. And then the last thing that you referenced, Mayor Miller, was the zoning ordinances for R5 state that you need 3,000 square feet of land for each unit under R5. We have 32 units and there's 6,600 square feet of land per unit. So that's that means that the density is less than half of what is allowable under your ordinances. That's not to say that twice as many units could actually fit on the property, engineering-wise.
The second thing that I'm really hearing a lot of has to do with the stormwater plan, and I know that that doesn't actually have to be submitted until the final plat. However, I don't know if it may be helpful to the residents if there was some discussion of what that looks like prior to.
Again, we would love to meet with the residents and go through that. We have submitted to staff some of the preliminary drainage work as far as sizing of the detention ponds, sizing of the inlets, collection pipes, and the discharge requirements. In fact, we've received a review letter from their third-party engineering company, Strand and Associates, with review comments. And the review comments, quite frankly, we intend to address all of those comments and more to comply fully with city requirements. It's just that their comments really speak to the details associated with final platting and final plans. So there's some fine-tuning to do to address those comments, which we will do. But frankly, we're a little bit reticent to move on to final platting until we have some indication that this project is supported.
Totally off this subject, but I've heard a few individuals say, "But what about the garbage? What about, will they have toters like the rest? Is it going to be private? Will there be just one dumpster? Can you just lightly touch on that?"
Well, as mentioned by Community Development Director Hines, we have, since the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, opted to go, instead of a public road, it'll be a private road. And this is a pretty significant concession on our part because not only will we be paying for all of that infrastructure to be put in, but we'll be required to maintain it, deal with snow plowing, etc. We would work with city officials for garbage collection, fire, and access for fire and police, and those issues. But that's so those issues we need to coordinate with the city as far as garbage, their response, city and fire. But the maintenance and the construction of the roadway would be funded privately.
Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Ross, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Wiggins. This is in regards to Alderman Berberet. As for what I'm speaking on is as for a meeting with the residents again, to give them, I know you said, there's some type of refusal or maybe bumping heads on something. If they were to have a town hall to see how many residents are truly want to hear, see the whole plan. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Maybe a town hall meeting or something like that, and then get them all there, and if they show up, they show up. They don't, they don't. Mm-hmm. But I think that would be probably a very good idea, and then to see what what you're working with. If they show up, you know how serious they are. If they don't show up, you know how you can take it that way too. They wasn't that serious. So I'm thinking that maybe you can try again with them to give them a town hall meeting or something like that and go from there.
It's a great suggestion, Alderman Ross. As I stated, we've reached out numerous times, and I'd be more than happy to do it one more time. I have offered to meet with them at their convenience, individually, in small groups, or as a large group. So I will, on your suggestion, I will offer one more time to do so at their convenience.
I mean, I think, you know, because I think that would be a good idea because, you know, you hear this, you hear that. Let's meet in the middle and get it over with.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I've heard from several members of the community. It's not my ward, but they've reached out. They're very concerned. And I would be as well, because I live in an area where stormwater is a major issue over on Santa Fe Drive. We have no ditches, we have no drainage, everything comes right down through my yard, 6-8 inches deep. So I see where their concern's coming from. It makes a lot of sense. How do you think the density of the buildings and the roads and everything else that you're going to put in has affected, you know, that concern? I mean, that seems to be the two biggest concerns. The third, right after that, is sidewalks and access. I mean, that's basically what I've gotten back from everyone. You know, when I look at a plan, I see the road right up behind the property. As I look at Google Maps, it's pretty significant, you know, right on the back of the property with, you know, depending on people are coming and going, lights, all of those types of things. You know, have you thought about changing? I thought some of the earlier plans of the plots actually looked more reasonable than this one even.
Another great question. Thank you, Alderman Monroe. Specific to drainage, I would like to address it. I live right across the street to the south. I mean, if you drive by my house right now, I have constantly battled this year, and it seems amazing because we're in a drought. But I'm constantly battling runoff that comes from the property, comes across a roadway and into onto my property, and then people can't seem to stay on the roadway in front of my property for some reason. So I get this rutting that occurs, and I've been putting in posts and filling them in and planting seed. And how this development will address that is the city has very specific requirements on stormwater collection, retention, and discharge about post-development conditions compared to pre-development. So yes, there's rooftops, there's pavement, etc. You're going to have more water. That's very logical. But those requirements require us to collect that water on site, retain it within a retention pond, and then discharge it over time so that it doesn't go on to the neighboring properties. So that's that's how that item will be addressed. I am very confident that by complying with the city's requirements, the drainage concerns that myself and my neighbors are experiencing will be resolved. You're right. There's other issues. I don't remember if you were asking specifically about those, but that's the drainage response.
Chair, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Mr. Wiegans, getting back to this retention pond.
Yeah.
I don't know how much work you guys had done on it, but how deep? Because the reason why I say how deep would that retention pond be in order to handle the rain? Now, we don't know how heavy it's going to rain, but in a heavy rainstorm.
Right. Well, we're planning on putting the detention pond on the property. First of all, it won't be on the city property or anything like that. It'll be on the property. We reserved a stormwater detention area from the project where we're not going to construct any condominiums. And again, it's not completely final, but I know the preliminary calculations determined how much water would have to be collected and retained, and that helps to size the pond. And I believe the pond, I believe the pond was about 4 feet deep. And the theory of a retention pond is that the water gets collected, it goes in, it builds up because the outlet is controlled. So it builds up during a rain event, and then as the rain event subsides and stops, the water is slowly released and the water leaves the retention pond.
Okay, follow up. So where would the water discharge to?
We're looking at installing stormwater discharge pipes from the pond to essentially the southwest corner of the project property, and then turning and heading south within the Park Boulevard right-of-way, ultimately discharging it to Park Boulevard roadway. That's where the water naturally goes now. It'll just be at a controlled rate.
Okay. But with that being said, though, do we think that'll cause a problem? We don't know.
No, I don't believe it'll cause a problem at all. And again, we'll go through all the final design details, which will come back to you through the planning process, be reviewed by the city, and, we'll have to address all of their comments.
Okay.
In your in the materials that were presented to us, you use the term townhomes. Typically, my understanding of that is two-story homes. In the materials, though, it's a one-story layout.
Yeah. A great question, Alderman Borneman. Any reference to townhomes is simply because I didn't catch it and change it to condominiums. These will be one-story on-slab construction. They're designed specifically for a slightly older community in mind. They're not conducive to family units by the number and size of bedrooms, but they will be one-story.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense considering the age target population you're going. People probably want to
There'll be
downsized.
The intent is to have no steps throughout.
Okay. So my thought about it, one of my questions is, do you see an issue at Park Boulevard and Empire from traffic from this? I mean, maybe this is a better question for city staff, but I mean, my concern would be a long traffic queue at Park Boulevard and Empire.
Alderman Borneman, I live on the south, or the southeast corner of Demeter and Park. I know what the traffic is on Park Boulevard, and this is, we're not talking about a family that has two parents at work and a child that drives and everything. We're talking about either a single person or an elderly married couple in these units. And they're not going to be making 10 trips a day, as was mentioned in the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. There's 32 units. I frankly, 60 vehicle trips per day may be on the high side. Most of those trips will go, in my opinion, because of the proximity to Park, they will go Park. And, if they're not going to the park or taking a leisurely drive through Woodside Drive like I do a lot, they'll be going north and turn either on La Cresta or Empire or continue on north. But this minimal traffic compared to, I believe there's, I've got the traffic counts, but I know that the existing traffic counts on Empire, Park, and La Cresta are way higher than what this traffic would impact. It will not create any queuing issues at Empire.
Do you have plans? I know you mentioned a landscaping plan, but one of the concerns that people have brought up is you're driving Park Boulevard down into the park, driving south on Park Boulevard. The subject property has lots of old trees that line that, and it's kind of a tree-lined boulevard. Would there be like landscaping fencing in place? Is that something that would be a part of the project?
Well, along Park Boulevard, it's naturally screened with the existing trees that are there. We don't intend to remove any more trees than required, and in fact, a bulk of those trees are on park property. So we have no control over that. We couldn't remove them if we wanted to, and we couldn't stop the park from removing them if they want to. But for instance, and I don't think you asked specifically about this, but along Demeter, I know there's been some stated concerns, and we'd be willing to work with them on screening efforts or whatever. Our intent is to have a significant, impressive gated monument at the entrances, you know, a gate entrance, and very nice fencing. If they want landscape plan with screening, that's one of those issues that we could resolve in the 10 seconds it took me to say that.
Go ahead.
No, I'll put this out there. I think, most of us, are really behind having something happen. We believe development in the city of Freeport is very important, growing our base, providing housing for those who have trouble getting around. And I don't think there's enough of that in the city of Freeport. But, I think we've got to resolve some of these issues and make sure that everybody kind of understands it. I'm still trying to put it together in my head. I'm a visual, look at a map, look at a picture, see it type of person. So I'd love to see some of these answers on paper. And we shouldn't, and as a community, try to hold back anybody who wants to develop our community. I think one of the things, they spoke about the roads, curbs and gutters and sidewalks. All of those are important. They're important to the safety of the people walking down the roads. I'm sure that both the chiefs have, had their folks responding to accidents with that. So, but I see the value of putting it where it is, and I think it makes a lot of sense, access to the park and the rest of it. I see more than just a bar across the street. I also see the access to the park, and some of the folks still walk quite a bit. I know my parents do, even though they don't live in Freeport any longer, they live in the villages. I would love to see us retain those people in our community because it's important, to keep family close, and that's what we're built on. And I'd love to see some of the solutions to the concerns that they've brought up because they are very important. They live there. And we live with them in this community, and I'd love to see what you have to show.
Well, and please, I live there as well, and I spend a lot of time in my yard, and I see the number of people that use the Crate Park, I call it the Crate Park pathway. That is what is used by the community going north and south in and out of the park. From within our development, we are going to have a 8-foot wide path that connects our development to that walking path. I've heard about sidewalks on Demeter. We resist that because it would require us to remove additional trees. We resist that because there are no other sidewalks on Demeter or really within the greater community at all in that section of town. And honestly, if I think there would be a pretty significant uproar by my neighbors if they were required or if the city came to put in sidewalks because of the number of trees and the impact that would have on what the streetscape looks like now. We're willing to talk to and resolve any of these issues as best we can.
So I have questions. They're kind of scattered all over topic-wise. With regards to the project, is it your intention, would it be your intention to build all the homes at once, or would it be once somebody would buy the home, design specifically they want this model, and then the construction would begin?
Yeah. Another great question, Alderman Boardman. Our intent is first to get through the city process, and that's proving laborious, to be honest. We obviously had hoped to be much further along by now, and putting in infrastructure yet this year. That's not going to occur. We feel we're really kind of getting under the gun to start construction in a timely fashion next year. But our intent specifically in the application that I stated 2 to 3 years. I would have stated 2 years, but I'm afraid to be held that if it goes a month or 2 or 3 months over that. So I gave us, I said 3 years. We believe based on the level of interest that we're seeing, I've been contacted by well over 20 interested parties now, and I believe about half of them are serious potential buyers. We believe the interest is high. We've talked to a local realtor who says these are needed, that she could sell them quickly. Our intent would be, as soon as we get through the city process, get final plating approved, we would develop the floor plans completely, get those out there so people could pre-order, but we would begin constructing, and I think we would have it completely built out in within that 2-year period of the 2 to 3 that I've stated.
Any questions from Mr. Wiegans from council?
I got one more.
Mr. Ross?
I got, Mr. Wiegans, one more. This may be a little further down the road, but what about the water and sewer? How would that be handled?
Well, we'd be required to put in water and sewer on the property, and that comes at our expense on the property. We have proposed to have 2 connections to the water main along Demeter Drive. I believe that the city views that as a positive. They call that water main looping, and you have issues when water main is not looped. So that's one of the reasons we went with the circular drive kind of concept, is so that we could loop the water main in the roadway. Sanitary sewer, there would be off-site sewer required because the neighboring properties on Demeter Drive are unsewered. They're all on septic systems, so we would have to go, I don't have the exact distance, but we'd have to go east on Demeter Drive, a ways where we go over the hill and down around a corner and connect at the bottom. In the draw there's existing sewer. That would be the nearest sewer for us to connect to. So there would be off-site sewer mains, but that provides a benefit to the city, actually, in the long run. I believe one of your goals is to provide sewer to unsewered communities, and this project would help to make that happen.
So it would be no cost to the city to hook up on your part. Am I right or wrong? I'm not absolutely for sure.
To hook up on our part?
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't know about any. I think if we're constructing the sewer, I don't know what there is for connection fees. There's probably some connection fees I'm not aware. I don't know. As we get forward with the project development, we may speak to the city about participating in that off-site portion. But all the on-site water and sewer would be at our expense.
Your cost. Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
this might be a question for Public Works, but the proposed plan here, tying into city sewer and water around there, what's the condition of our piping there? Would it handle something of this magnitude at this time, given where we're at right now?
Yes, I believe that it is.
Mr. Chair, Attorney Zito has a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Zito.
And I certainly appreciate all the discussion that the council's had about this topic there. But one thing I do want to, I think getting all the questions that you guys have discussed so far and asked, is a good, so that you guys can get a flavor for what the end all be all development might look like. That being said, I do want to remind the council that the item that's actually going to be before you come the next city council meetings, there is just the map amendment. So this is step one in a couple of steps that the developer is going to have to take. Some of those following steps, as far as some of the details, whether it's drainage and stormwater, how that's going to be collected, the size of the roads, this or that will come to you guys formally when it comes time to planning. Okay, so I don't want you guys to start mixing too much of those concepts with just the map amendment will be before you guys. So ultimately, when you guys vote on the map amendment, you guys are going to be looking at whether or not R5 zoning is appropriate on that particular parcel, compared to R2. Is that change from R2 to R5 harmonious or in conjunction with our zoning codes and those LaSalle Sinclair factors? So again, that's just a reminder. I'm not looking to stifle any questions or conversations, but again, that's what's ultimately going to be before you guys in the upcoming as step one.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, because it is a little confusing with all that. But Mr. Monroe, you had a question?
Yeah, so this goes back to the attorney. So basically, do we, at this point, if we were to vote yes or no on going to R5, would we have any control over what happens with the plans after that vote, or via approval or disapproval?
You would still have say afterwards, because ultimately the plat's still going to come back before you guys for a separate vote at a later date. So if you guys ultimately decide to vote in favor of the zoning, that just means that you're saying R5's an appropriate type of use. Duplexes are an appropriate type of use on this property. There's still going to be however many questions that come along. Now that we think that hypothetically R2 duplexes are appropriate, what's that going to look like? What are the details now? How's it going to be laid out? How's the drainage going to be happening? What's the traffic going to be? What's whatever? Right now, you're kind of at a higher foot level of just saying about the use. Is duplexes, should it be allowed on this property? Not saying what a duplex, how the actual development will look or the subdivision will look or those sorts of details, how it will be built out, just looking at the bare bones use conceptually.
Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Rouse.
This is for the attorney again, or whoever can answer it. So the zoning board, did they make a decision already, or not?
My understanding, and Kirsten, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that the zoning board, this did go to the ZBA already. They did hear this matter, and I think it was a 3 yes vote, 2 abstentions.
2, 2, and 2.
Or was that the planning?
The zoning board of appeals voted against the approval of the map amendment. I can't remember off the top of my head what the vote was, but for planning commission, there was a motion to recommend approval with a few contingencies, and the vote was 2-2 with 2 abstentions. Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the exact same thing that was before the zoning, correct? I mean, the plans have changed since then.
The only thing that's changed is that it's going from public to private roadway. The plans are essentially the same. There were a few changes to my understanding. I haven't done a full review of the most updated preliminary plat, but my understanding is that there are a few changes to things like the curve of the radius or the horizontal curve. Our condominium code requires that those are at 100 feet, and I think that they were around 30, 40, 50. There were a few different curves in the plan, so some of that has changed.
So in your guys' packet, I'm looking at the findings of fact sheet. There it indicates that the ZBA outcome was 3 yeses, 0 nos, 2 abstentions, and therefore because zoning matters require a minimum of 4 yeses in the positive, this comes with a negative recommendation before the council there. But I think if your question was how many no votes were there on this, there were 0 no votes. They just didn't have the requisite yes votes to come with a positive recommendation.
Glenn,
Okay, sorry, this, if you're not on the council or a member, I'm just gonna direct it, Ms. Hines. You understand the confusion here? Or,
Well, so the zoning board did not recommend approval of it.
Correct.
That's, yeah, they didn't recommend approval, but the way that they vote yes versus no was just a little bit confusing because I think it was, they voted not to recommend approval and there were yes
Oh.
votes towards that.
They phrased their motion in the negative?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they did not vote to, they didn't, they ultimately didn't recommend approval of it.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Same outcome, no positive recommendation, but it sounds like they made a motion to deny
Mhm.
the to deny the project.
Yes.
Okay, so then they voted 3 yeses, which
Mhm.
is, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
And yes, they vote 3 noes then.
right. Other person, Busker?
Yes, it'd be probably directed towards community development. With the zoning, refresh my memory with R2, that is just single-family residential.
That's correct.
No duplexes could be built. Like if one person wanted to build one duplex, that right now that wouldn't qualify.
Correct.
But they could potentially put up 10 single-family homes on that 6 acres.
If they subdivided the lots, they could do that. They would still have to go through planning commission through the subdivision ordinance then, and they would have to go to council then as well.
But
they could,
at this point,
theoretically.
where we're at now, it's zoned for that, so that's one less step that once we zone it 5, they're still gonna have to come back to the same steps doing this way, correct?
Yes.
So that's all we're doing here, so, all right. Being as that said, if we're just at that point, we're gonna bring it up to the same level, whether, it's R2 or R5. At this point, I think I'd like to make a motion to put this towards the next meeting for more discussion and a vote.
Randy, I don't,
It-
well,
yeah, is that even needed? Because it's in the
Right.
process.
yeah, this is gonna show up on your guys' next agenda regardless, so there doesn't really need to be a motion to recommend moving it forward to the next agenda, because all zoning items are gonna come before you guys regardless.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bucus.
it's a matter of when you want to put this on your council agenda for action. I think we were looking at putting it on, was it August 2nd agenda or the July 19th?
July 19th.
July 19th. So we were planning on putting it on the next council agenda, so if that's what you'd like to do, that's what we'll do then.
And so then that needs a second reading, so then, there won't be a meeting then on the 4th Monday, and so there's actually plenty of time for you to ask questions and get more input before the second reading on the map amendment, which will be the first Monday if it's moved forward.
Yes, if I may. Yes, the first reading would be July 19th, which would be next Monday, and then the second reading, if it's approved at the first reading to move forward, would be at the August 2nd meeting, where final action would be taken on the map amendment only.
Right. Okay, so that's something you needed a motion for, or that's going to happen as a matter of course?
It's going to happen as a natural course of action.
Okay.
It'll be on the next agenda.
Any other questions for staff or Mr. Wiegans?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Meisig.
So thank you to all who've been a part of this discussion, including those from the public who've shared their thoughts today. I think there's a general consensus in seeing that the council is interested in seeing development here. We want to see development done with all proper due course. And I realize there's some challenges in this property, in the drainage. There are some inherent challenges that just are a part of the project. And I think that this is something, we're asking the questions because we care about making the right decisions with it. And I really am excited to see interest in developing. And would like to see these items to be addressed, and I think that the council with me, very much to to address each one of those independently. And we're trying to condense so much information into one session right now that I don't know we're going to find all those answers, but we want to set the right course on this as we make a vote. So we're going to be continuing to gather information. Thank you, Mr. Wiegans, for presenting. Thank you for many of the various comments here tonight. A lot of information for us to research for our vote.
Yeah. And thank you, and we will follow all of your ordinances and your requirements. And there's several steps for us to complete yet, and the biggest would be the final plating and these final details. I would only state that whether it be R2, R5, a lot of the issues that you've asked regarding water, sewer, stormwater, those would have to be addressed under any zoning designation for any development that occurs on this parcel. So we look forward to doing that. Thank you.
So, going forward, the map amendment right now is what's before. It's going to go to council meetings. I think one of the frustrations that I've heard from the public is it's kind of confusion of how this process works. Let's say we get to the point where the map amendment is approved. Can somebody walk us through what the next steps would look like?
So if the map amendment is approved, they would have to submit a variance based on the most recent preliminary plat. They would have to submit a variance application for the radius of horizontal curve, and then they can also submit their final plat at the same time or wait until that variance is approved. But they would have to go through, they would have to have a public hearing for both that variance application and the final plat. So there will ultimately be 2 more public hearings if the plat stays the same as it is now, and then after that, those applications will come to council for review. I think the variance will have 2 readings with council, but the final plat, is my understanding, it would only have 1.
What body is the public hearing before?
They both would be with Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you. So with that being said, we'll move on to, and for those in the public, there is another portion of public comment tonight, so keep that in mind. We're moving on, though, to item 10, which is follow-up on city's goals established by the Social Justice Committee, and this is presented by Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Social Justice Committee recommended a number of metrics be measured to see how the city is making progress in our diversity and equity in our city government. And the second quarter of measurement saw us take some steps forward in the area of recruitment. In the police department, the number of female employees increased by 3 from our base number. That's a 15.8% increase in female police department employees. And female police workforce now accounts for 36.7% of the department employees. On the minority workforce in the police department, there's no change from the last quarter. The minority workforce in the police department now accounts for 8.3% of our employees. In the fire department, we added 1 additional female, and we also lost 1 minority employee in the department. Female employees account for about 7% of the fire department workforce, and the minority employees account for 0% at this time. Our goal in both departments is to increase the female and minority employment by 5% by October of 2021. We have used the various outreach techniques and resources to try to recruit for these positions, and we intend to continue to do so in the future. With respect to other departments, we saw an increase in 5 female employees since last quarter. That's a 17.9% increase. Overall, female employees in non-police and fire departments make up 39.5% of the workforce. The minority non-public safety workforce gained 2 persons, and the non-public safety minority workforce now accounts for 7.4% of our employees. Overall, we have 59 female employees, 11 minority employees, and a total workforce of 184 people. This equates to female employees making up 31% of our workforce and minority employees making up 6%. At the end of the quarter as well, we did hire a social service professional that was in our plans that occurred on June 7th of this year. And with the lifting of most COVID, we also had a staff on the street criteria too, that we try to get out in the public and meet the public as much as possible. And with the lifting of the most COVID-19 restrictions, we were able to conduct one staff on the street on June 22nd. Unfortunately, other than the volunteers and city staff and elected officials, we only had about 10 people stop by and visit. We were hoping for a minimum of 20. That's been our goal at each of our staff on the streets. And we will be holding another staff on the street event on Thursday, July 29th at Wilbur Park from 5 to 6:30 p.m. This event, we have a local church group, youth group that's going to be distributing flyers in the area to hopefully bring better attention to that will be there to the neighborhood. Our goal to increase the nuisance and building inspections by 5% from last year. During the months of April and May, we only had one person in code enforcement being able to do those functions. And when available, the building inspector did help out. During those months, we had 347 cases per month. Just happened to turn out to be the same number of inspections on both months. And in June, we did hire a new nuisance inspector. She started on June 22nd, so she's only been here for a month for the end of June. But for the month of June, we had 400 inspections for the entire month. We're not completely on track where we were hoping to be with our quarterly goals for this year at this time, but we anticipate an increase in the remaining months to get us back on track to meet our goals. With respect to demolitions, we were planning on demolishing 10 buildings in blighted neighborhoods this year. With the demolitions of ABET Books and Hairways structures at 11 and 15 West Stevenson Street were completed during the second quarter. Also during the second quarter, we bid out the demolition of 6 structures. One of those 6 structures at 53 South Johanna was demolished, and it's being covered by our Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity flood mitigation grant that we have. The Park District also acquired a property at 1010 West Empire Street, and that property was demolished by the end of the second quarter. By June 30th, 2021, 9 structures in total were demolished in the city. 3 of those which were completed by the city. The other 6 were by private or other entities. We're anticipating the demolition of at least 5 more structures by the end of the third quarter, and we're working with State Senator Brian Stewart on a $175,000 grant. $50,000 of that grant would be used for demolition, so we'd be able to demolish more than just 10 houses this year. We had a slight mix-up in the way we were tracking our boards and commission membership, and so the statistics that we were using weren't quite right. They were kind of mixed and matched. So we're basically starting with a new base now, and based on this criteria, females make up 42.6% of our membership on our boards and commissions, and minority members make up 11.8%. With respect to hiring a communications director, we've been on the city's website and internet since the end of May. We've advertised in various locations, including various professional publications, and also minority publications as well. This fall, with the police and fire department recruitment, they're going to have to put together a new eligibility list. We're going to try to make some changes and be a little more aggressive in how we're marketing our positions and that. The last criteria was accountability, and that was to review these metrics quarterly, and that's what the council is doing tonight. So that's the report on our progress that we're making. Be open to any questions you may have.
Any questions? All right, without any further questions, we'll move on to number 11, which is discussion of ordinance amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances regarding water and sewer fees. Mr. Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've discussed this issue, I think 4 or 5 times now, either at a city council meeting or at a committee of the whole. The United States Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the U.S. EPA, and the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, IEPA, are proposing new rules and regulations regarding testing and treatment of various items that are found in drinking water. That includes lead and copper testing, and nitrogen, phosphorus removal, in our wastewater plant pretreatment process, changing that around as well. Because of these new requirements, we're looking at 2 additional positions that are necessary to meet the current and future environmental regulation and compliance objectives. The city's utilities require the addition of an environmental and regulatory compliance officer and a lab technician, prior lab technician 2. With the foreseeable retirement of our current lab manager, a smooth transition is assured if we can fill these 2 positions. Funding for this proposal is through the water and wastewater operation budget. There are no grant opportunities for water and wastewater operations. They do have it for capital needs, but not for operation of your facilities. Previously, I stated in order to fund these 2 positions, we would have to raise the water base rate by 26 cents. This would raise that base rate to $4.56 per month. That is a fixed fee, and it doesn't matter how much water you use, it's a fixed fee. Likewise, on the wastewater side, the original proposal was to add $1.05 to the base fee, which would bring that monthly charge to $7.21. So the overall total increase in the utility bill on a monthly basis would be $1.31. There again, these are fixed rates and do not fluctuate with the amount of water that you use. I know that some city council members have expressed their desire not to raise our utility rates. As an alternative, and one that I am not advocating, would be to temporarily reduce the capital charge on a utility bill by $1 per month. This dollar would then be split with 25 cents going to the base fee of the water rate and 75 cents going to the sanitary sewer base rate. The remaining balance is needed would be made up from reductions in the water and sewer expenditures in other areas. This again would be a temporary fix for 2 years. The cost as proposed would be $240,000 over a 2-year period. Most of our water and sewer capital funds are being used to repair and replace needed infrastructure, as well as to pay debt on our IEPA loans. By not collecting these fees, they will have an impact that we may not do some work in the future. On the positive side, we are still waiting for, the state has not requested yet from the federal government, but over the next 2 years, we should receive $2.8 million in American Rescue Plan funds for water and sewer projects. So this money will help us reduce some of our needed borrowing costs. In your council package, you had 2 ordinances, proposed ordinances. One dealt with the base rates of raising it 26 cents on water and the $1.05 on the sewer, and the other one was the reduction of $1 on the capital and adding 25 cents to water and 75 cents to sewer. One of the questions raised, why is there a difference in the 2, is because most of the testing that we're going to have to be doing, the new testing we have to be doing, is on the sewer end and not on the water end. Council has 3 options. Actually, council has 4 options. You could move forward with the original proposal to increase the water base rate by 26 cents and the sanitary sewer rate by $1.05. You can move. The second option would be to move forward with a reduction in the water sewer capital fee of $1 and reallocate that to the water and sewer operating funds. The third option is to do nothing, and the fourth option would be something in between. So.
I'll open it up to council. Do we have questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Busker.
Yeah, I spoke at this when it was originally brought up, but I wanted to bring it here because we had 4 members of the council out at the time. So I think, there was some of us that were in the appetite of going with option 2, but I just wanted to see, I think this is, asking for more money to be on our constituents. I think we need to have fair representation, so I wanted to make sure that everyone at the table here was here to share their ideas. They might have something even different than this or what, so that's why I was hesitant to move it forward as option 1. I just wanted to get more discussion with everybody here.
Thank you. Mr. Shadle.
The
second option, I'm not in favor of moving the money from the capital improvement side of the water bill. Evidence of how that money works for us is, it was brought up today with the ability of us to talk about bringing water and sewer out to Mill Race. 2010, 2009, I was on the Water and Sewer Commission when a lot of this money was finally allocated in initially the Big Four, with a lot of concern about raising the water and sewer rates in that time. But at that time, there was talk of taking water and sewer to Mill Race, and the flow going into our sewer plant was at a point where that wasn't even able to be talked about. But because the money that we put into those funds 10 plus years ago, that money has worked for us by lining the sewers to a point where now we can talk about taking that out there, because we have taken such pressure off of our water treatment plant, that we reduce the flow to a point that now we can even talk about that without a major redevelopment in the sewer treatment plant. And I just worry it's only $240,000 in 2 years, but we don't know what's gonna happen. And I feel that money is there and it works for us. It has worked for us, and we're seeing evidence of it now. And for $1.31 on a base water bill, I don't feel it's too much to have that security of knowing that we're doing the right thing for the future.
Chair?
Thank you. I'll go with Mr. Parker.
It's a lot what I was thinking, but I have to agree with Alderman Shadle on exactly the $1.31 is not too much to ask, considering the benefit we're gonna get from it, so just wanted to voice my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Monroe?
I was a no vote on the first time around, and I've given this a lot of thought. The main reason I'm a no vote is because the amount we've raised it over the last 10 years. I mean, at some point, we have to look at other avenues in the city to figure out how to get this done. It's the same reason I asked the community development, not community development, but the Greater Freeport area partnership. You know, we have to think of this differently. And our constituents, a lot of them are on fixed incomes. They're low incomes. We have to be honest with ourselves. I mean, $1.31 is not a big deal at the end of the day, but it's the amount we've raised it over the last 5 to 10 years. And that's the problem. And I know we've been left with a problem that was before all of our time sitting on this council, every single one of us, the mayor, the city manager, every one of the department heads. This is a big problem. But I get it, and I understand it, but we've really got to start looking harder at other ways to fund these projects. And, you know, I've heard astronomical, I've read some of the reports about overtime in some of the departments, things like that. I think it's important we start looking around. And I think we have to take our job seriously and protect, you know, the men and women that live in this community, just as we're trying to do with Park Avenue. We're asking a lot of questions, trying to get that resolved. I'm going to be I'm going to probably change my vote, but I do so not willingly. And I think we need to all, even though it's just $1.31, every time we say it's just another $1.31, it's another $1.31 out of somebody's pay, their retirement, whatever it may be, that isn't changing. So I think we have to be real cognizant of that. Our population's not the youngest population in the United States. And I think we need to really think long and hard about these things in the future. I do see the importance of this, but, you know, I just wanted to state that.
Well said. I'm glad that you are on the Finance Committee. Do we have any other
Mr.
comments?
Chair,
Mr. Meisik?
I'm thinking very much along the lines of what Alderman Monroe was saying, that it is time for us to be creative in our approach to fund this, and obviously when we have higher level of regulations coming, costs are continue to go up, and we don't want to pass that on to every taxpayer. And so we recognize, that the folks that are on those fixed incomes, and what can we do? So we've been asking this question now since it was proposed, that to find some creative ways of coming up with funding for that. And I believe what's on the table allows us to do that in a 2-year period where we get things squared away for the immediate need, and then coming back to it to address it at a later time. But not, I feel that what's being proposed there with addressing that through the capital improvement fund is a way that can fund it for the short term. And it's understanding that we do have a short-term issue to address on the regulation side.
Chair.
Mr. Ross, go ahead.
Okay. I truly understand what you're saying. It's $1.31. Okay. It's $1.31. But to some people, that means a lot. I mean, some people say it's just a cup of coffee. Yeah, but that's a good cup of coffee. So, yes, we do need to find an alternative way, but we always got to remember it's more to it than just $1.31. If we went with the option 2, where it's 75 and 25 for a couple years, and then see where we're at, I think we might be better off. We don't want to kick the can down the road. I've heard that I don't know how many times. But I think it might be more appreciative to the citizens here in Freeport if we go on the lower route. I understand with Melrose Crossing and everything we're trying to do a lot that ain't been done in a long time. But I think if we could take a little bit more conservative way at it and go about it that way, we may get more answers. And I'm not talking about 20 years down the road. I'm talking about immediate answers, a couple years to see how it works out and go from there. Because I think on opinion, it might be the best thing in the world to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bucus, could you, if you haven't already, re-explain what the capital improvement water sewer funds, what do they go to that we would be taking off the bill and putting towards another part of the bill?
They go towards our debt service, which we have borrowed money for, as Mr. Councilmember Shadle mentioned. The Big 4 project was a major water sewer project that we undertook. Well number 11 that we're in the process of developing right now, along with the water treatment plant. We're borrowing money for that we're going to have to pay back, so that money will be used for that as well. The project that we're doing now on the water main replacement, that's 8,000 linear feet of water main we're replacing today. That money has to be paid back. We've been very fortunate that on some of these borrowings, we've gotten some forgiveness, loan forgiveness, almost up to 20% on some of the projects. But we still, we're talking about millions of dollars each time we do some of these projects. And the lead service replacement projects right now, that's a $6 million project. It's going to be $12 million by the time we're done. That $6 million is all forgivable. The EPA is forgiving our repayment on that. And it will also forgive the next $6 million as well. But there are other projects in there that we've done in the past. We've got work to do at the wastewater treatment plant. The Lanning project was a big help, but we still have other work to do there as well. We have well number 12 that we have to bring online once number 11's done, because we're going to be taking 2 old wells offline at that time, and we'll be decommissioning the Island water treatment plant that was built in the 1980s that we're still using today.
You mean 1890s?
No, 1880s.
all right, 'cause you said 1980s.
I'm sorry, did I say 1980s?
Yeah.
No, 1880s.
Yeah.
1880. And we have water lines in our community that are dating back, that we know, for at least the 1880s, thank you, back to 1883, that have to be replaced. So we have a lot of infrastructure to do, and that's why we have the capital plan to help us, meet that. And it's a 20-year plan, and every penny we use, and that's why we've been very aggressive trying to get some of these low-interest loans. The loans we're paying, that we have right now, the EPA, that we're applying for are 1% loans, and we can't borrow that on the open market. So it's really, we're being prudent as much as we can, and trying to get as big a bang of a buck as we can for the money that we do have.
Mr. Burberry.
Thank you. We're being told that for the next 2 years, we need these 2 additional positions because the EPA is requiring more data, more statistics. Is there any type of a guarantee that after 2 years, the $1.31 can go away?
There again, working on our whole system of what we're trying to do in the water and wastewater plant, and I don't know how much I should reveal right now or not, but we'll have to look at it. Within 2 years or 2-year period, we're looking at possibly the lab manager retiring. So that'd be one position that would be taken away, and one person moving into that. And that would probably be, one of the lab technicians that we have that would move up. The compliance officer, we're dealing with the U.S. EPA right now on a administrative order of consent. What that's going to entail, we're still working on. I mean, we've been going back and forth with them for a number of months now, and we're still waiting for a response on our last proposal to them. So that's going to be a full-time job almost by itself, especially when it comes to new requirements on pre-treatment. We have a number of companies here that have to pre-treat their waste before they send it down the sewer to us, and there's a whole new process now that they're going to, some new rules that are coming into effect. That's why we're doing this, that we're going to have to follow, and they're going to have to follow as well. So I'm not going to say we won't, but I think in 2 years, we have to review it and see whether we need that position or not, and I think we will. I'll be up front right now, I think we will. But that's not to say we won't lose a position someplace else that we may not need. So we have to look at the whole organization at that time.
Thank you.
We're constantly looking at what our needs are.
Well, my thought is Manager Bucas has listed a lot of projects that needed to be done for a long time and weren't done for a long time. And as Mr. Monroe said, those predated us. But I think one of the reasons those projects weren't done is because the council, prior administrations were afraid to raise that $1.30 and to develop, to put forth the funds to develop a project, like you said, the 20-year infrastructure project. We need to stick to that project. Otherwise, what's the point of this plan? We're not going to fix the things we set out to fix. So my position is it would be counterproductive to reduce that dollar, the amount from the capital improvement. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Water and sewer capital.
Water and sewer capital improvement. You look at the sewers, and it also goes to, I know this is specifically towards the sewers, but our roads are in terrible shape too. Those get fixed by spending money, and so we have a plan in place. We need to stick to that plan. I think it would be almost irresponsible to step away from that plan to avoid an increase of $1.30, and I completely understand everyone else's position about we can't just keep doing this to people. It's $1.30 now, but yeah, over the last 10 years, how much was it? So I get the bill too. I see it and I understand that no one's excited about that. And with that being said, though, I mean, my proposal would be to move forward with the original plan. And so I'm going to make a motion if one is needed. And I'm thinking one is, since we have two options, to move that to council floor.
That was option one.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Messick.
could we have any further discussion on this?
Right, there's a motion and a second, so.
Yep.
Further discussion. You mean today or at the next?
Yeah, I'd like just to point out a couple of things. So with that base rate increase that's proposed on option 1, is that a direct dollar amount that shows up on the bill, or that's the base rate and that's multiplied?
No. On your bill, you have your water charge, and in that water charge, there's the base rate plus your usage rate. And then there's your sewer charge, and that's got the base rate inside of that plus your usage charge. So both rates are included in each of those charges. And then after that, you have your capital improvement, and then your street improvement, and then storm CIP, and then storm operation fund. So those funds are listed separately.
So the direct impact is was it $1.31?
$1.31, yes, and that's
each month
right,
bill.
right. It's part of the base rate, and so it doesn't matter if you use 1,000 gallons or 100,000 gallons. You're paying that same $1.31.
Is it going to show up just in the base rate? So
No.
it won't be like a separate $1.31 for.
No, you won't see it. All you're going to see is, like I said, is your water will have a dollar amount, your sewer will have a dollar amount, then we have all the capital fees that we have after that.
Okay.
And then you got your trash in there too, your refuse.
Thanks.
So that's part of your utility bill.
Any other questions? All right, we take a vote on this, or does this move forward with a first and a second?
I believe we typically vote. I missed the second, though, Chair.
It was Parker.
Parker? Just a voice vote, Chair, if you want to call for that.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, moving this forward under proposal 1, say aye.
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 No.
And Ross is opposed. Any other opposed?
No.
Why don't we take a roll call vote then?
Roll call, Attorney Zito, okay? Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
No.
Ross,
No.
Parker,
Yes.
Busker,
No.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mysick,
No.
Berberay.
Aye.
So
The vote is 4-4, Mayor,
No.
and the motion fails. 4-5, I'm sorry.
all right, so where do we go from here?
Well, certainly that leaves option 2 to see if there's, we had a certain amount of no votes here. I don't know if they're in favor of option 2 or option 3 or option,
Okay.
or something in between. So I guess we'd have to have further discussion
Right.
on how the council wants to move forward.
Thank you, council. So we're back to discussion on this issue. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for option 2.
Second.
Chair, before we vote on that, can you explain the difference of what we just voted on? What got defeated in this option? Short terms.
Yeah. Did you understand the question?
Yes.
Okay.
What Councilmember Ross is asking is that under option 2, we would reduce the water and sewer capital improvement fee by $1, and I believe right now it's $40, so it go down to $39, and we would take that $1 and we'd apply 25 cents of that $1 to the water fund and raise the base fee of the water fund by 25 cents. And take the 75 cents and add that to the sewer fund. So I don't don't have what that come out to be, but so it'd be an extra dollar on your, well, it wouldn't be anything. It'd be a wash, because by reducing the CIP and applying that dollar to your base rate, there's no change in your bill, because they're both fixed fees. Neither one was,
And that would only be a 2-year change in the CIP. So it'd just be taking what's already collected, reallocating in a different place. So there would be no increase to anyone's water bill looking at it. You know, if Manager Bucus is saying if we take $40 and applying $39 to one fund and $1 to another, but you wouldn't see that on your bill. It would just be what it already is.
So, question, that's not gonna cost the city any money to do that then? Are we gonna lose on that deal?
Yeah.
Well, the other money was planned for projects we had to do, and now we're taking it away, so then projects won't get done, or?
Well, that's where it's capped at roughly $240,000 in 2 years. So then at the end of the 2 years, hopefully we've got a different, like what Alderman Misick said, we've got 2 years to figure out how can we be creative to keep this going without causing extra burden to the taxpayer.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sorry, forgot I was
Sure.
chair.
One other question on this, to follow option 2, does that require reprogramming, like to execute this, does that require a change in our billing system to allocate those funds?
yes, we would have to make a change in our software to do that. No matter what option we went with, well, 1 or 2, we have to make a change.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm probably going to throw a wrench into the works here, but kind of just thought of I don't know if we could do something with a fourth option, like Ms. Randy Bucas said, is, you know, with all this EPA stuff, there is going to be, you know, with big industrial being the brunt of the testing and whatnot, is there any way we can adjust it that the bigger industrial complexes are paying more for this testing and whatnot than just the residential? Is there any way we could do that? Is that an option? Is that why we're getting tested for this stuff?
I might have to refer to our Public Works Director. I'm not sure how we could, I mean, we could charge a fee, but
I think if we're trying to encourage businesses coming to our area, that might be something that we want to look at very closely. I do want to mention that these new requirements from the EPA, these represent a fixed expense. These aren't going away. They're existing programs that are expanding and getting more labor intensive. There's additional testing, and they're making the test more difficult, and they're lowering the levels of contaminants that are allowed, and then they're also increasing the consequence if you have a failure, the action that will be required afterwards. So as far as putting them, I think there might be something to be looked at as far as the businesses are concerned, or the industrial contributors, but like I said, we have 6 of them right now. That may go to 12, and 2 or 3 of those is going to be City of Freeport itself. So, you know, that's what I have to say about that.
yeah, part of the new testing, we now have to consider our landfill as an industrial site, and it has to do meet all these testing requirements. So it's not something that's going to go away. It's just going to get worse. And I know I mentioned in the past with our lead service line replacement program, even though we have money coming in from the IEPA that is basically a forgivable loan to replace all those lead service lines, when we started, the program was from our water main to the curb stop. If there was any lead service lines, we would have to be responsible to replace them, and it was the responsibility of the homeowner, like it has been for the last 100 years, to replace it from the curb stop to their home. Well, in the middle of this program, now they're saying we have to not only take it from our water main to the curb stop, but we have to take it into the home. And so that added a great cost. I mean, this is something that was going to cost us about a couple $1,000 per house is now going to cost us $10,000 per house to fix. So, that's $12 million we're hoping for on lead service lines. We may not be able to do all of them. And we got 2,300 homes we're looking at. So it's just a matter of what the EPA is going to require us to do. And we have to be prepared for, changes. And that's why we're always monitoring legislation, and we're always monitoring what our industries are doing and our workforce as well. That, how can we make ourselves leaner and better?
So that's why I was confused. The 2-year time frame. Where did that come from? Because clearly we're going to have these testings for longer than 2 years.
Right. Well, basically, it came from that we believe that the lab manager will be retiring at that time. So we knew there'd be one position that'd be vacant. And to be quite honest with you, I knew council wouldn't be too happy about adding people and raising rates. I mean, so trying to look at ways of how can we minimize the impact on our ratepayers. And like I said, we're looking at making some other changes too within our system, and that hopefully won't have to keep that. We could keep the compliance officer, but there may be another position someplace else that may be eliminated. Because I think once we have that position, it's going to be a full-time position forever.
And then another question. So by reducing the water sewer capital improvement fund by $1, there's going to be $240,000 less that the city can put towards projects to fix things that are as old as 1880?
Yes.
Over the next 2 years?
Or debt service. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, council, at this point, did we have a motion for number 2, and this is discussion, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I did miss who the motion was made by.
Ross and Mysick, right?
Ross and Mysick seconded.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I would, at this point, I think we need to have a roll call vote on proposal 2.
No, 1. 2, excuse me.
We tried
Excuse me.
1 and you voted no.
Yeah, no, I got mixed up. No, it's 2.
Borneman,
No.
Monroe,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Busker,
No.
Shadle, Mysick,
Yes.
Berberay.
Yes.
We're at 4-4 again, Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-4.
Okay. All right, well, we're moving on to discussion, item number 12, discussion regarding licensing of bird ride scooters. And Mr. Bucus, when I think of bird ride scooters, I think of you, so how about you? You're leading this presentation, right?
Yes.
Can you hang on for 1 second?
Yes,
Could you read that vote count back? as far as-
certainly. Did I miscount?
I just want to make sure.
Sure. Borneman, no. Monroe, yes. Ross, yes. Parker, no. Busker, no. Shadle, no. Mysick, yes. Berberay, yes. And Mayor, yes. Agree. Okay. I'm good.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bucus, on item 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city's been approached by Bird Ride to provide stand-up electric vehicles, also known as scooters, in the city. They're currently looking for an entrepreneur in the city that would provide the service and maintain the scooters. The scooters would be used as an alternative means of transportation for short commuting distances. These scooters would be picked up each night and recharged, and in the morning they'd be placed back in the locations that basically where they're used. Since the scooters have a GPS tracking system, that can be left almost anywhere, and they do have a mechanism to keep them from leaving the city limits as well. Bird is planning on having between 25 and 45 scooters on city streets. The main problem encountered in other cities from our research shows that these type of scooters really interfere with what they're going to do with as far as parking them. There's a tendency for users to leave the scooters in the middle of a sidewalk or to put them in automobile parking spaces, and then they become a problem in that respect. As far as any type of financial consequences or benefits for the city per se, we do not have a franchise fee or registration fee for this type of service. When the company representative was asked about a fee to the city, he stated that they don't pay any fees. This plan fits, the Bird concept falls within 3 areas of our strategic plan. The first one is connected, accessible, and safe communities. The scooters would serve to connect some people with their jobs and shopping that maybe otherwise may not be able to. It could also impact the air quality at reducing emissions in our area, especially in the downtown area. Secondly, it could serve as an effective public-private partnership because we'll be working with Bird and offering alternative means of transportation for our citizens. And thirdly, it enhances our entrepreneurial economy because the concept of alternative transportation needs would be, we'd have to find somebody that'd be willing to take on basically a franchise for it. And it also meets our comprehensive plan to, as an alternative means of transportation, and by offering something like this, hopefully it could draw young people to our community, not only to live, but also to work. And so it's staff's recommendation that the City Council direct staff to work with, on a memorandum of understanding with Bird to provide electric scooter service in the city.
Questions? Mr. Parker?
Is there an age limit of who can ride these things?
You have to have a driver's license. You're supposed to have a driver's license, and you need a credit card because everything's done on a credit card.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Ross.
Okay, and these scooters, where are they supposed to be ridden at? In the bike lane or on the sidewalk?
In the city streets.
In the street. Okay, with that being said, do they have lights on them or anything like that?
I believe they do.
They've got lights on them. Do they have a time limit or from what hour to what hour they can be ridden?
That would be part of our memorandum of understanding. They, I believe, the original proposal they gave us had the scooters out by 6 o'clock in the morning and picking them up at 11 o'clock at night. But I think that the agreement that I have, or I may have included in your packet, I think had like a 4 o'clock in the morning, putting them out in midnight. But that's up to the city to determine how late they can have them out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Shadle?
I can see this as something that I would probably never even think about using myself, but it wouldn't be for me. I would be in favor of giving it a try with them on a pretty short leash, though, as far as these things getting scattered around town and left in the street. And with that understanding in our agreement, they would be on a short leash.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
That's
Go ahead.
That's part of my concern too, is that we might find some of them in the Pecatonica River and that, and that will happen. But they've got that part of their program. It's what kind of loss they'll have, and like I said, they have to find somebody that's willing to do it. And from just looking at it, I'm thinking this is, when you start off, this is going to be very time consuming because they're going to pick up these scooters every night and have to recharge them and then bring them back out again. And if 45 scooters, you got to really be hustling to do that, I would think.
One last question.
Mr. Parker?
The liability, if they have an accident with a car and get hurt or killed, or a pedestrian, who covers that liability on them?
It'd be it's their liability. Well, it's whoever's writing its liability, I would assume. I'm not the attorney, but it's just because we gave them a license, it doesn't mean that we're liable for somebody getting hurt. I mean, people have driver's license that drive cars and get in accidents, and it's not our fault because they.
Okay,
Yeah, Mr. Zito.
So based off of the draft agreement, they do have an indemnification provision where they would indemnify us for any sort of damages that result from an accident or anything like that, to the extent the city was dragged into any sort of a lawsuit. I do see that they also have to carry insurance. I think one of the tweaks, if the council decides to have us move forward with this, would be to make sure that we were named as an additional insured. I don't see that provision in here now, but that would be certainly something that I would request that be included as part of any agreement.
Thank you.
Chair, one more question.
Sure.
And the scooters have to follow the same traffic laws as a motorcycle, bicycle, et cetera, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Monroe?
Yeah, several questions. First one is, would they be allowed in the bike lanes that we're putting in downtown?
No, they're not allowed in bike lanes.
Okay.
They're not allowed on bike trails.
And number two, this is more of a statement. I'm probably the only person on the council that's actually ridden one of these things. The chief's shaking his head. Having been in many cities around the country, they are typically left laying around up against buildings in places we probably don't want them left. I think that's going to be one of the biggest problems. But at the same time, where they're at, they're typically used. Although I think maybe 6 months out of the year they could be used here. They probably wouldn't be much use in the wintertime. And on top of that, there are some very crazy things that have happened in other cities. DUIs, riding them in traffic the wrong way on a road. I've seen the worst case I saw was on an interstate in Texas and outside of Austin. A person was hit on one, and the interstate was shut down for like 12 hours. So we have to put real good rules on these, but I think the younger generation, younger population in the city would definitely be interested in riding them, and it might actually bring people back downtown. So.
Chief, did you have anything, Summers, any strong thoughts on this, one way or another, with traffic safety issue?
I don't. I would be concerned a little about the traffic safety downtown. We've already had problems with bicyclists and skateboarders on the sidewalks and things like that. I also very concerned, although it's not our responsibility, it's the company's responsibility, but it will fall burden on the police department of tracking some of these down when they're put in places that the private company can't go and things like that. There is a concern of mine on that.
Thanks.
Chair, one more question.
Sure.
As Alderman Monroe had just stated, Chief, wouldn't that be considered under a DUI, a motor-driven vehicle, not vehicle, but motor-driven, or what are they?
Not in Illinois, it wouldn't be considered a DUI to be intoxicated on that. I mean, it can cause an accident that could be very dangerous and stuff like that, but you couldn't get a DUI on the scooter in Illinois.
In Illinois. So in other words, he would be considered a intoxicated person unruly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so those are all things we could address in a memorandum of understanding with regards to time of use and things like that to try to cut down on DUIs, or intoxicated people using them. Mr. Burberry?
Thank you. City Manager, what about the county? If somebody just drives out Route 75 and goes out to the bypass or in the county, are they covered by this, or will the county have similar?
No, this would only be in the city limits.
So they could go any place then?
I was just looking at my notes to see, I thought that they could put like if you go outside a certain boundary, a certain area, that the scooter automatically turns off.
Oh, okay.
And I was trying to see whether they had something talking about the DUI thing. I thought there was something, I don't remember if you had erratic driving habits. I don't know, Mayor, do you remember? Yeah, whether they would automatically turn off.
Okay.
But I do know that they have a way of if you're outside the boundary limit, that they will.
Thank you.
Yeah, turn off.
Mr. Chair.
Sure, Mr. Besker.
As regard to the leaving them just all over the place, is there something we could ask the company to, you know, I hate to give someone else directive to spend money, but to, make, they're sure there's a deposit on the credit card, and if it's not put back in a designated spot all around the city, that, they lose that deposit. Kind of.
Yeah, I don't think there is a designated spot. That was the thing of it.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're
if
pretty
we
much-
could get a designate, a couple designated spots around the area, so they're not left in, I think I saw when Rockford had those Lime bikes, there was some stuck in trees, If these people are paying for them and not gonna get the deposit back until they drop it off at a designated location, I think that might curb that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the GPS, I'm sure they could track where the scooters are, unless somebody really does a number on them and rips it off somehow. But by putting in a designated area, that means we would have to provide them or require them to build a location for these, and the real use of these vehicles is that you just ride it to wherever you need to go and leave it right there. Just hopefully you don't leave it in the middle of the sidewalk, but that there are leaning up against a building, or there's some kind of bike rack facility around there that they could lean it up against, but, or not lean, could they have a kickstand on them, but, it's gonna be kind of difficult, I think, trying to require a deposit. I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, we could ask the question, I wrote it down, so.
Any other? Do you want a motion on this, or will you come back?
Look, I'll come back with something, because it's getting kind of late in the season now
Right.
to really do it, but they may try, they may not, and we may only do. And that's another thing, too, that any type of agreement we enter with them, there'll be a provision in there that we could terminate it at any time. And we'll probably do a one-year contract just to see how it works. And as was mentioned, November, December, January, they're not going to be riding the scooters very, very much.
Okay. I guess one last thing is it's the corporate policy to not pay licensing fees. I wonder if you could press them on that, because pretty much every business in Freeport is licensed and pays some type of fee. So, but with that being said, you'll bring that to the next cow, it sounds like, or the next meeting.
I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay.
sure. It depends how fast we can get things moving.
Thank you. Okay, so that sums up item 12. So next on the amended agenda is going to be public comment, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so public comment. If you would like to speak, just step up to the microphone, state your name. Tommy, it looks like you want to start things off.
I wanted to tell Mayor, there's Lamp Water Funds coming up the July 22nd.
I'm sorry, there's what?
Lamp Water Funds
Oh,
coming
yes,
up.
yes,
at-
I have.
And we wanted to invite Steve Summers over to some,
I'm gonna try to make it.
and I want to tell the mayor he does a good job doing the mayor support and everything. I listen
Thank
to
you,
it on the
Tommy.
radio.
Thank you, Tommy. So this doesn't require a sign up. If you would like to speak, feel free to step up and just say your name. You have 3 minutes.
Dan Nipshield. I was part of the park project. Sorry, I came late. I was working in one of my apartments, so I disagree. I would vote no on that project. For densification purposes, I live right on La Cresta and Park. Probably half these people walk that area. I see a lot of people. I have a little 5-year-old. There's no sidewalks there. Even one more car a day, I don't want to see it, because so many people walk that area. We shouldn't add any more traffic than only visitors. So I watch people. That's like the #1 gem that going into the park the city has. If you ask anybody around here outside, they know where Cree Park is. They know the entrance of this park. They know our park. No one's going to visit the Lincoln Mall. No one's going to visit Chicago and Galena. No one's going to visit. They all know Cree Park. I watch a lot of family people take their family members They're so excited about the park. They love it. Come see my park. You're going to change the entrance of our park permanently if you have this go through permanently. Is people want to see the change like that? This is the one gem that we can all say we have Crepe Park. Rockford has Sinisippi, but no one has Crepe. And also too, no matter what you do, that's not going to be affordable housing. You can subdivide it as many times you want. I live right next there. I can't even afford to live in this place over there. That's no way affordable housing. The city, how are the people from the east side, if you ever get them out, there's no affordable housing for them. You should worry about them developing something for them, not for people that $200,000 houses. Come on, to $6,000 a year in taxes. Who can afford that? And thank you.
Thank you. Just feel free to come on up, whoever wants to speak. Yes.
I give you guys a lot of credit for these long meetings, and I know you received like over 100 pages of documentation just alone on this project, so I get that. We have reasons why we declined to meet with Park Partners, and I won't go into them. I'm really too tired to think of them, honestly. But if I don't know what you meant by as town hall, but if it includes city council members and some city staff, which I just cringe asking you to go to another meeting, but not so much to negotiate, but just to talk about some of the details where we can have a back and forth conversation. And there's, it may not be binding, but other, people have heard that. I think we would be open to that. I would surely. So I don't know how we go about that, or if that's something that, you would want.
Ms. Welty?
Just a couple thoughts about sanitary sewer. When my husband bought our house, which is on septic, and we happen to be 2 houses away from sanitary sewer, he was informed that a pumping station would need to be put in. So it's just something you might want to look at. I can't imagine it has changed in 23 years, but I guess it's at the bottom of the ravine, and to get it, I don't really understand how they work, but I think maybe you need to look into it again, because I doubt it has changed. So, and you look pretty young, so. Furthermore, with all the calculations about acreage and density, I don't know, but it seems really, unfair to consider that the drainage detention or retention area is part of the acreage, because it kind of seems to have to be there, and then it eats up part of the 6.2 acres. So I would kind of like to see that broken out and then look at the acreage again. And further, I would like to see the opposition look at how big the average acreage is in our neighborhood per house. And I think it's probably about approaching an acre per house. And this is why, to us, even though it may meet the city standards for density, this is why it seems too dense to us, because it's not like the houses around it. It's kind of apples and oranges. And I sort of wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm going to. An offer was put on the table for the property, and I was informed that it's just not done to tell people that an offer was put out. But Mr. Wiegand stated at the zoning meeting last month that the property had been for sale. And it seems to me that if he can state that the property was for sale, then it's only right that everyone knows that an offer has since been made on the property. So, I mean, I was not told how much it was being offered for.
So we gotta cut you off at 3 minutes, and
Okay.
your time's up. Thank you for your.
I would like to negotiate that, though. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Alan Nowicki again. Thank you for your questions on drainage. And I just want to say that there's a lot of water that comes off that lot. And to say, well, it's just going to run down Park Boulevard is kind of not a good answer. And so I wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say a little bit about density, as she did, that I believe the minimum setback for R5 is 30 feet, and that's what the units are set back from Park Boulevard and from the neighbors that bordered on La Cresta. Yes, it meets the minimum, but that's very different from all the other houses in the neighborhood. And if you go to the Park Hills condominium development, there the condominiums are set back the same or more than the houses in the neighborhood. And so it will stick out. It will stick out and it will project towards the road farther than any of the houses along Park Boulevard. And again, I'd have to go back and look at the calculations on density, but I think the lot sizes are all kind of at the minimum allowable. And there's, when you say you could put more homes there, I don't think that would be better for anyone. It's inappropriate for that neighborhood. And I think that's partly why the zoning board rejected it. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nowicki. Mr. Wiegans, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Number one, addressing the property for sale. I'm not the owner of the property. At the Zoning Board of Appeals, she asked if the property was for sale. I said everything's for sale. I would give her the contact of the property owner. I did that. I know nothing more beyond that. Secondly, what's before us is the map amendment request and all the other things regarding drainage and these things that are being brought up, which, by the way, I said much more about drainage than it would just run down Park Boulevard. But I won't repeat it. All of that would apply whether it's R5, R2, or whatever the zoning is. So I'd like to keep that in mind. Answering one of the questions that was brought up, the single largest adjacent residential property is just over 2 acres. There's several properties that are less than an acre. And in fact, some of the properties adjacent to our project were divided from larger parcels. I just want to put that out there. Condominiums are dispersed throughout the city in middle neighborhoods. This is per the city staff recommendations. And if aligned well with the neighborhood, neighboring property values are not negatively impacted per their findings. Alderman Ross, again, I will commit that I will reach out again. I would love to meet with them in any format to try to resolve their concerns. I also want to just point out a few things from your comprehensive plan developed just a year ago. It states within it, by encouraging entrepreneur investors, the city can realize its goal of additional investment. The result of additional investment is improved overall housing quality for the community. Improved overall housing community within the community, or overall improved housing quality within the community can be vital to attracting employers. It talked about 1 new home being constructed within the last 2 years. The plan indicates Freeport has an older housing stock compared to its peer communities, and that 1/3 of its housing is over 70 years old. I just couldn't leave if I didn't say, per your earlier discussion, if this property is developed, you would have that many more users paying your user fees for water and sewer to help with some of the other issues that the city faces. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wiegans. Any other public comments at this point? All right, we're going to move on to item 14. I'm going to make a motion to table item 14 to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, for what it's worth. Second. Discussion, Manager Bucus, is that something that would harm any of the discussions in there? Anything too timely?
Now, it might set us back on a couple things, but nothing that can't, we're talking about next Monday. We could do it next Monday. That's fine.
Okay, so that was a motion by me, seconded by Shadle, to move the executive session topics to, which is literally next Monday, right? That's our next
Yes.
meeting. So a week from today. Have a roll call vote on this.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle, Meissick, and Berbere.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 16 is adjournment. Do I have a motion? Busker? Seconded by Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll see you next.
No, oops, let me turn this off.